Teachings and Testimonials. We are here with the Stantons on this evening on Father's Day. So we are so very grateful to have Mr. Leslie Stanton here, Darius Stanton II, and Mr. Peace in the Morning himself, Mr. Darius Stanton. Let's give them a round of applause.
We're glad to be here.
And of course, my co-host, Evangelist Carolyn Lassane.
Praise the Lord. Good afternoon. How is everyone?
Well, we're just going to jump right into the show. Mr. Stanton has been a long-time resident of Annapolis, Maryland, where he's been very active in the community and the school system and Department of Health all around. And Darius Stanton, Mr. Claflin himself, 2013, 2014, I believe so.
Perfect, correct.
All right. And then Mr. Darius Stanton, who has his own talk show as well, Peace in the Mornings, which is a very, very awesome show on Fridays that they get in here and they rock
that's
the
right.
house.
You've been on the Peace in the Morning show.
Absolutely.
Funky Friday, that's right.
Funky Friday. Funky
right.
Friday.
That's right. You got to bring your cousin on there, so you know. But the stage right there, so
absolutely.
All right.
You know.
All right.
So today is Father's Day, and I'm so grateful to have been raised by a great father, as well as my dear cousin Carolyn.
Yes.
And I was sharing earlier how I've had some friends that have not had that experience of being a daddy's girl and being raised by a gentleman and, you know, teaching us how to be ladies.
Right.
So that is the standard. And so how we would like to be treated and making it not difficult to understand who we are and our worth. And oftentimes looking at some of the things that we see, a lot of our worldview do not portray our African American men as gentlemen. But I am here to say today that the Stantons represent in the most exemplary way as being gentlemen. So share with us, we'll start with Mr. Stanton, Leslie Stanton, as was it a rites of passage in raising your children and influencing the community of that statue? Where did that come from, and how have you allowed that to span throughout your generations?
Well, you know, Dr. Pearson, first of all, we're honored to be here, to be on the show, quite frankly.
Definitely.
And you and I have been colleagues, and it's just a pleasure to work with you again. It really is. But I really appreciate that question from this particular perspective. As an African American, it's very, very important that we tell our own narrative, because what oftentimes how we've been portrayed in the past has not represented who we really are. Now, for me, for example, to hand down how to conduct yourself as a gentleman to my son, he to his sons, how to treat ladies, obviously, it just simply come from me. I had to have a reference point. Someone had to illustrate that to me, or I had to observe that. Someone had to talk to me about that, to see it for myself. And they themselves had to see it for themselves. So as a community collectively, we simply haven't been betrayed in that particular manner in terms of how our parents have raised us, how we conduct ourselves as African American men. Because oftentimes you see us portrayed in the negative.
Right.
But that simply has not been my experience as a whole. Right. Needless to say, this goes to all the communities. It doesn't matter what color you are, it doesn't matter your economic, social status or experience. We all have deficiencies in our respective communities. But as African Americans, I draw on the positive. And I'm truly, truly blessed as I can sit here and look at my son, because it's rarely a day that I go through the streets of Annapolis without someone saying to me, how's your son doing? How's Darius doing? And Darius made his own mark. Understand that. So people consistently, how's he doing? Tell Darius I said hello. Half of them I know, half of them I don't know. Or they know me because I'm Darius's father. Right. But you understand what I'm saying? So those reference points that I'm referring to came from a generation or two generations before me that handed it down. And Darius has picked up the mantle, and I'm just, the manner in which he's raised his family and conducted himself as a father is, I mean, I'm just so proud of him. I'm proud of him for him being his own man, he being my son.
Yes.
But what he's exhibited to his family, I'm truly proud of him. And then I look at Darius and his son, my grandson, and I think about how he's truly, truly matured and how proud I am of Darius because he's truly come a long way. He really has in terms of his level of growth and maturity and his level of responsibility. So I say this from a perspective of being a father, that I love them, but beyond that, as human beings, how they are concerned and treat other human beings. I'm so proud of them for that. I truly am.
Wonderful. Now, Darius, not only have you done exemplary work and raising your children, but this also spans throughout the community. So not only have you kept the mantle going as a father to your biological children, but how have you infiltrated the community? Because there are so many young men that look to you as a father figure.
Well, I was in a store yesterday. Thank you for the question. I was in a store yesterday, and it was the Mom's Market on New York Avenue. And the gentleman behind it, I can't remember his name, he was in the salad section. And so he was just, his manners were impeccable, you know, his professionalism, how he, you know, talked to the guests, my mom, the other people that were there, myself. And, you know, as I was looking at him, I said to myself, and I thought of a book title, I'm going to put it out there, I was going to hold on to it, and then I said, but, you know, let me share what God gave me. He was raised right. It's really, you know, it's just that simple. Right. He was raised right. He knew how to treat people, talk to people, you know, handle people, and we learned all of those things at home. Manners, respect, you know, and so my father said, and thank you, Dad, for saying those, you know, those things about, you know, us and all the people, as I said, my wife and all of the family and friends that helped raise our children. But as he said, from a human perspective, you can see from Darius a very accomplished man of his own right. You know, when if you Google our names, you know, you see his stuff. You see what he's done. He's got his own lane that he's created and done and made the name for himself, you know, by the work that he's done. Not by the Facebook posts, not by the imagery of whose pictures he's with and whose rooms he's in, but the work. And but the greatest thing, aside from the accomplishments of him, my daughter Jayla, Justice, you know, our youngest son, they're great people. They're great human beings. They have manners. They're kind. They care about people. They have respect. They go out of their way for people, you know. And so that really is where the pride comes in. And in terms of the community, again, it's the modeling. You know, right now we're fortunate to start. Thank you both, Darius and Dad. They were there yesterday. We started the 4th annual Annapolis All Sports and Leadership Academy, which we named after Wiley H. Bates. Mm-hmm. And we have 180 boys every Saturday morning, every Thursday evening in Annapolis, Maryland. And they're coming from Eastern Shore, South County, Charles County, you know, North County, up in the Brooklyn Park area, you know. So we have children, boys coming from all over, you know, the region.
Wonderful.
And when they come off the court, they go into a leadership session and learning, you know, financial literacy, manhood, entrepreneurship, environmental justice, civil rights. You know, education is a new sport is the theme of the academy, and you have all these young boys who you talk about young men who respect me, but they respect me because I was there, and then they had that model, but they helped me be who I am. You know, so that energy is what it's about. And those coaches who bring their 12 or 14, I mean, we have so many situations now. Normally we have like teams that have 10, 11 players. We have teams that, like, these men are carrying 15 players. Now, anybody who knows basketball knows it's hard to get 15 players to play. If you're not on a school team and you're just glad to be on the team, 10 people are not in the game at one time. Football is different. You got more numbers. You can have more people on the field at one time. A lot of different ways for them to exchange. Basketball, 5 to 7, maybe 8. And in summer, it's short as time is short. Right. And these guys are coaching 15. These are younger men, who are taking care. They got their own families. And so we really want to impart upon people the importance of home. Loved people love people. And when you see men, there's a statistic. You talk about what we do see on television, and it's so true. But there's a statistic that came out of some research done by the Center for Disease Control that says that black fathers are the most engaged fathers in America. More than Asian, more than white, more than Latino, black fathers are the most engaged fathers. That speaks volumes, but you don't see it. And that's why this show is so important. I really want to, give you kudos and thank God for blessing our family to be one that's showcased. But a brother named Jeremy Newkirk, he does a lot of technology programs throughout the country and supporting things. He's, a great father. There's tons of great fathers, I'll ask Darius to tell him about, we still do it, a father's only camping trip, where we actually had like 175 children and 59 fathers all at one time, an entire weekend. And we've been doing that for over now 20 years.
Wow. So what has that experience been like for you, Darius?
I feel like it's a microcosm of so many other experiences that really have spoke to community, fatherhood and brotherhood, and really just strength. The camping trip, we started doing it a long time ago. I really can't even remember what age we were when we started. But like he said, it was about 180, almost 200 people on campgrounds. And we were usually the only black people on the campgrounds.
Right.
And, I'm glad we came in the numbers that we did because everybody wasn't too happy with our presence there. But it was funny because, it was such a strong example. The fathers, they woke up early, they cooked breakfast, lunch, and dinner throughout the whole time. They were also being themselves, so we got to see so many opportunities of black men enjoying one another, being around their youth and their seeds. And it was also a very great learning lesson. We learned a lot of lessons while we were out there because, again, you're out in the woods. There's not much to do, so it's easy to fool into something you're not supposed to. But at the same time, there was so many black men there that were there to teach those lessons and there to pull us up when we weren't doing the right thing. And it was funny because it didn't always have to be our father that checked us, And I think that it was a community of people that we had fun, but then we also were disciplined when needed to be.
They helped set up camp. They pitched, before you get to go run off and do your thing, you got to put the tent together, get everything set up. Then you can go. You can't just get up and run and the fathers go to work. The children have to participate, break down. Mm-hmm. They got to break down, make sure everything's put away. The van, the truck is loaded up. So all of those things, and the daughters came as well. And for the daughters, it's one thing for you to see your father, but like you said, when you watch television, the image of, so you're competing in society with the world, and the world's image of us can be so negative that when it's just in your family, just think about the time frame. So you're home with your family for X amount of time, but then you watch television, you get that image. You watch the internet, you get that image. You get all of these pieces, but these other images are competing. Mm-hmm. So, when you're in a situation where, as Darius said, all of these fathers are there, and the women, the young girls got a chance to see men not look them up and down, not, trying to crack on them young. I'm talking how men do crack on young girls, which is not a good thing. I thank God I never did it, so I can sit here with clear conscience and say I never did that. I'm not passing judgment on people, but I'm just saying that that's not a good feeling for girls to grow up in and then expect that. And in that camp environment, to my knowledge, that never happened. But they got a chance to see men respect them, talk to them appropriately, all of those things. So so for them as women, they know what to expect and deal with as a man.
Awesome. This is very encouraging. My dad, it'll be 14 years this year that he passed away. But I was a grown woman, when he passed. But one thing, and just sitting here looking at you, it reminds me, and I'm sure you probably heard this term, even though I think it's a little one of those Southern terms, but we grew up with the men that opened doors and closed, like, literally, I remember going on a date, and I was sitting in the car, because I'm like, you going to come open the door? That's the way I was taught. Like, you don't get out, you let the man open the door for you, and you don't walk on the outside of the street.
Come on.
I remember I was walking down the street one time, and I was like, get in the inside, I ain't trying to sell you. What's going on? Get in the inside. But you don't see that a lot. So this is amazing that this is what a passion that God has given you. But I want to ask, I understand that it came from the Lord, but how did it start? Where did it start? Where you're like, I have to do something more for the community. I have to do something, because I see, is it because you saw that there was this area that was lacking? Or where did the passion come from to start doing that? Because that wasn't just something you decided to get up and say, I'm going to take 200 people on a camping trip, especially black people, because I'm be honest, I don't go. My family has done some camping trips. I'm not even going to lie.
Right.
I'm putting it out there.
Right.
We've done some camping trips, and they know I'm going to show up, and I'll be there all day, but when it's about time to go to sleep, I'm leaving. See y'all. I love y'all.
See you in the AM.
And we're talking about them, them big camping things now that it look like a house. And I'm like, I'm still outside, and it's still outside. No. And we know about the outhouses in South Carolina. So, okay. All right. So, but where did the, where did it come from to get you going for that? Because again, that you didn't just wake up, one day and say, I'm going to do this and do it the next day. They had to be planning, but God had to give you something. So where did that come from?
That's an interesting question, and I'll try to wrap it up very quickly. For example, for myself, I started working with young people at a very young age in relationship to being a camp counselor, summer school counselor. And I still have relationships with those, at that time, young men who are now fathers themselves, even grandfathers. And I see them, and we still talk, have relationships. My son started working with young people at a very young age. Same thing, he started coaching, and then it just kind of like continued and transferred. Darius, he started working with
coaching.
What was ironic about that?
Right, okay.
From the city of Annapolis, it was pointed out back in 1988, when drugs were at a very, very high level in the city. And we would always see young people out playing basketball. So riding around, I noticed, no young people out and about. They're in the house. What's going on? Why aren't they out and about? So, in part, their parents were afraid to just let them go out on the street because of the influence of drugs. And also, a lot of the young men got kind of caught up into that whole drug piece. So we said, we need to do something. We need to get these young people out here. We need to get them active, give them a positive summer experience. So we started a program. And the programs, the hook was basketball, but in addition to that, we wanted to bring in young men to talk to them about different virtues of life.
Exactly.
Education, respect.
Yes.
So in order to play the game, you had to sit and listen to the talk.
Exactly.
Basketball was the hook. Now, fast forward, 24 years later, my son decides to start a very similar program that he talked about. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But he's taken it to another level in terms of what he's included into that program. Once again, wrapping it around the positive virtues that adult males want to pass on to young males. Now, it's not exclusively restricted to young males because we include females.
That's right.
Wonderful.
That's right.
Right.
We just need some female coaches.
Darius picks up on it. He coaches a team.
Right.
But the young man here coaching, he's only 4, 5, 6 years older than them. You know what I'm saying? Darius, when he started, same thing. So I just think innately they had it within themselves because, sure, they may want to see you do it, but if you really don't have it in your heart,
Right.
you're just not going to follow through on
Right,
it. I simply think that they had it in their respective hearts as their own individuals to want to do something as it relates to the community.
But I would say also raising children the way they should go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, raising children the way they should go. That particular scripture, and it's so very important to start children when they are young because
That's
what's
right.
in them, it will grow up in them and mature in them. And teaching how to love education, how to be a gentleman, have morals, have integrity, you know, and to stand for what's right. Darius said he is teaching civil rights, and that's something that truly needs to be shared because our history, other people have been sharing their truth, which has not been our truth in history books. So a lot of individuals have a lot of misconceptions and believe things are not necessarily true.
That is so true.
So let's change the conversation just a little bit to fathers who may feel like they have no hope in relationships with their children. And I know that you all see that.
Before you shift, I always like to give credit where credit is due. And, you know, where we have had some dynamic leaders and men in our family, you know, and truly that has helped us be who we are. We also had some dynamic women who held us accountable as men and who taught us to make sure. My grandmother used to put her arm underneath my arm, you know, and walk on the street.
Oh, yeah.
You know, that's her way of teaching me how to be a gentleman.
That's
you know,
right.
excuse me. And so, but they also gave us that sense of compassion too. We saw women who cared for people, and they showed us, you know, to be grateful, say your prayers, you know, and how to look out for the people who don't have. You know, we watched our grandmothers and great-grandmothers pass men on the street, you know, and give them $1 and give them $2 and not pass judgment on them or walk by and say, look at that man, or, you know, talk down on them, but look, how can we help? And we saw that, you know, and so I just wanted to kind of interject that because that's also a part of our service comes from the females too, you know, because they did have that compassion. As men we do as well, but we did also have that perspective as well, and that taught us, you know, a lot. So I apologize for interjecting into you.
No apologies necessary. Yeah. So you can go ahead and continue as it relates to the fathers that may feel like they have no hope. You know, they have been estranged from their children, and I believe that every father loves their children. They may not have the resources to do what society deems they need to do, or they may not have the mental capacity. But I just believe that every father loves their children. Oftentimes, I truly believe that they are not afforded to because some of the systems that have been put in place, especially if they're not married. I despise child support. I think that every father should take care of their child, but I don't think a system should dictate how a father should take care of their child. Oftentimes, when we look at statistical data, fathers, the majority of fathers that pay child support, they barely can live themselves, you know, so it's just a cycle, you know. The average child support, I know a few years ago, was about $50 a week. And to be incarcerated for $50 a week, if they didn't have $50, my goodness, you know, to incarcerate someone for that is just an egregious thing in my viewpoint. And I think that it just kind of castrates the family. How our society has just banned men due to laws and misinformation, being miseducated, and some women taking up that banner, not really realizing the damage and using a system against fathers not, you know, being there.
But you know, Akeda, I saw this story. It was an article. It was a picture, actually, but that spoke to an article where a man was walking across the desert. It was an African nation that was at war. And he had his children with him, and they had to flee with only the clothes on their back, whatever they could carry, just to be alive. And the man broke down because as they traveled through the desert, his children died of starvation. Some of his children were dying of starvation. And to your point about men loving, and so it breaks a man's heart when he really wants to do but doesn't know how, or his own fallacies get in the way of him wanting, not that he doesn't want to do, but it gets in the way because of whatever life's challenge brings you at that time. Unfortunately, though, there are men whom, again, did not have good models or had no model.
Right.
Just think about, I just read the article this past, it was in last Sunday's paper, Washington Post. Actually, it's a story that I really want to spend some time on, and it talked about the homicides, the unsolved murders in major cities throughout the United States. They pointed to Richmond, Baltimore, Boston, I believe Oakland, and where it showed black, Latino, white, and I believe Asian. And in one city, maybe in Richmond, 80% of the white murders went solved. But in a 5-mile radius in these particular cities, less than 30 to 40% of the African-American murders went unsolved. But if you think about it, the majority of the policing takes place in those same communities. So you have more resources, but less solved murders. So that's a whole nother conversation for another show and another topic. But my point is, if you have that many people who are being killed, because they talked about like in this amount, it's almost at least 10,000 a year, black men that are killed. So you take it over 20 years, how many black men that is. So how many grandfathers is that?
Right, right.
How many fathers in that? And then when you think about a million men that are, or 800-some thousand black males that are incarcerated every year, how many fathers is that? How many grandfathers is that are removed from the home? So where we are most engaged when we are home to engage.
Right.
But when we're not, we're not. And those sons are growing up without that. You know how many boys now don't know grandfather?
Right.
That's like, we were blessed to be able to see older men, great uncles, great uncles, and great grandfather. That kind of. Those boys don't. Those men didn't see that, and they did in some instances. It was abusive or neglectful, or and so they don't have respect for that, and they don't have a connection. Women have a connection innately. Right. Because there's a physiological connection based on giving birth in the cord. But if you don't have the cord, what's there to connect that man to that body? True. The woman carries that child for 9 months. So she would stop smoking reefer and take a blood drug test. With a man, he don't see the connection. He can lose the job and not get the job because he don't feel the responsibility for having to take care of that family. That woman raised that child, so she feels responsible for having to feed it. That's how I see it.
But to add to that, I think that there is a myth out there, quite frankly, as it relates to the socio-economical conditions in respective families. Because in terms of my associates' connections, they cross the spectrum. And quite frankly, there's no difference between someone who perceived as being well off versus someone who would be on the lower end of the socio-economic status as it relates to their love and care for their child.
That's right.
Absolutely no difference. I run across brothers all the time who may not have had the most positive experiences, but they often refer to their children, the fact that they connect with their children. And so I think that that's a myth, and it's all connected to the narrative, the consistency that's pushed out there. We look at the numbers of African-American men who are incarcerated. They're taken away from their families. They're separated from their families, similar to what happened during the time of slavery, where African-American men were removed from their families, you see. So I think that that narrative out there, quite frankly, is oftentimes misconstrued. There are instances, yes, where we would like to see all of the families that is mothers and fathers connect with their children. But I know that the folks who and obviously a lot of people I know have made a concerted effort to try to connect with their children. Not saying that there are always positive results in terms of relationships, because relationships are something that are very personal, depending upon personal experiences. But that being said, I have to go back to my own personal experiences as it relates to, and I'll say this, young brothers who father their children but make a concerted effort to have connected with their children in spite of some of the circumstances that they may have come across in their life.
Absolutely, because I think what it boils down to is love and being love. And
Love people, love people.
It all does come. But real quick, Ms. Curlin, you're right about opening the door, being on the right side of the street. People tell me, oh, Leslie, you're so old school, and proud of it.
Amen.
Absolutely.
And proud.
That's right.
You give the lady your umbrella. I was at a concert not so long ago on this bus, and it was 3, 4 white ladies standing up. And I just happened to mention that, but they were standing up.
Yeah.
I had a seat. And they were several years younger than me. They said, oh, no, see, I said, look, you're a lady.
Yeah.
Here's a seat.
That's right.
It doesn't matter
That's right.
who you are.
That's right.
right.
That's right.
You offer your seat to a lady.
That's right.
That's
That's
the way
right.
we were raised.
That's right.
That is
That's
right. That is right. And we are going to continue with understanding that God is love.
Yes.
Being fathers is a attribute of love, and ensuring that as you all continue your work, that you all spread the love. We're going to continue to spread the love of fathers, great men, and we're going to end our show with a defining moment from Evangelist Carolyn in reference to talking about love on today and father's love.
Okay.
Could I say something to fathers that are struggling?
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
For the brothers who are struggling, there's a lot of brothers who deal with depression, and they saw a lot of cruel things as men growing up. They saw their mothers beaten, their sisters or grandmothers. They may have seen them prostituted. They may have been abused by another male in the family or a friend in the household. There are a lot of men who go through a lot. Suicide, I understand now, has dropped down for African-American males, 16 to 24 to number 3. I know number 1. It used to be number 2 was the number number 2 killer of suicide of teens, 16 to 24. But depression is having a tremendous impact on our communities. And part of it, I believe, is because of the images that we see. First of all, psychologically, we don't even feel good about who we are. But then in addition to that, all of the weights and the pressures and the lack of resources and the lack of know-how or the model, and what to do. And then you've got ego and what you're supposed to be as a man, so then you don't share it. And so we're not trained to get the counseling and that we need to do that. So I just want to say to those brothers and anybody who knows, reach and push them to get counseling. Deal with those things that have hurt you, the things that you've been through that have taken you through trials and tribulations. Don't just keep it to yourself. Share it with somebody, whether it be a pastor, whether it be a friend, somebody that you see whose life is together. Continue to pray. And I'm going to tell you something that makes a difference. In addition to just walking and running and get your exercise, because it helps because it's chemicals also. The chemicals messages that you send yourself that put you under that stress to depress you. But the other thing is the sun. Give it to the sun. Let the sun, that vitamin D has so much power. And when you feel that sun and that energy coming into your body, that in itself is rejuvenating you. It is connecting you to the universe. It is giving you it's something that God is created for us. We can't live without the sun. We don't, the earth does not exist in its natural state without it. And so I encourage you to, run, exercise, have somebody to talk to, reach out. Don't, allow it to just keep closing in on you without sharing what you're going through, because we need you. We need you, black men. We need you, and we love you, and we appreciate you, and thank you all for having us.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Darius, and that is so very true. So we want to go ahead, and Carolyn is going to come, but we just want everybody to know to spread the love. And after she finishes, I'll share an event that's coming up from the Howard County Coalition to End Intimate Partner Violence, an organization that I found and still going very strong.
Amen. Thank you all again for being here. This has been great, hearing about just the positiveness, because so many times we don't hear about positive things from African American men. And I'm going to try to kind of like pull it in all together with the thought that the Lord gave me. Of course, I got to give a shout out to my church, Speak to My Heart Ministries, Bishop Dwayne Johnson, First Lady Cynthia Johnson, and to my apostolic father, my godfather, Bishop James David Nelson Sr. I love you. And just another giant, a giant of a man. And I thank God for allowing us, for him to be in my life. My pastor is an Incredibles fan. The movie, everybody knows the movie Incredibles 2 came out. Well, I don't have any babies, so I didn't see Incredibles 1, and now Incredibles 2 came out, so they was like, you guys see the first one. So anyway, I got to go back. It wasn't on Netflix, so I got to get it from Redbox or something. But in any case, Pastor's been teaching for the last week or so about the incredibleness that each of us possesses. And he was sharing, and I don't want to start naming the different ones because I'm going to mess it up. But he was saying that each one of the family, there was the father, the mother, the daughter, and another son, I think, and then another baby. I think that's correct.
Is that right, Darius? You know the Incredibles?
Yeah, so it's 5.
It's 5 of them. Okay, so yeah.
2 sons and a daughter.
2 sons and a daughter. There you go. Go ahead now. And and each one of them had their own unique power. And so when he was ministering that, the Lord gave me 1 John 4:4. Greater is he that's within us than he that's within the world. So it reminds each of us that when we were all birthed, when we were all formed in our mommy's wombs, God put some incredibleness in each of us. And these men have allowed God to use that incredibleness to share and to be positive. And that's what the Lord needs for all of us, is to share that. Every one of you. So you may not be able to form a program, but you can do something. Just as he was saying that his mother or his grandmother was walking down the street and they saw someone who needed help and they helped them. Just doing whatever it is that God has given you. And if you aren't sure what your superpower is, ask the Lord. He will tell you. If you pray and say, God, what is my purpose? Because each and every one of us, there's not one person on this earth that God has not given ministry to. There's spiritual gifts, and he has gifted each of us, and some have more than one. But God says, use what I gave you. Greater is he that is within me. So yes, in this life, there will be tribulations. In this life, there will be circumstances. And it's just to piggyback with what he was saying when he was talking about the sun. Yes, we got to make sure we get out in that sun. But sometimes, well, no, not even sometimes, we have to, as people, have to learn how to dance in the rain, because ain't nothing growing unless it gets some water. So there's some rain that has to come down.
That's right.
And instead of staying in the house and being, no, I can't go. No. God says, I need you to work through it. I need you to walk through. So you got to learn how to dance in the rain, so then you can really praise him in the sunshine.
You got to go outside.
You know what? So right, exactly. So what God is expounding for each of us to do is to use that greater that's within us. And again, if you don't know what it is, ask him. The Lord that we serve, the God that we serve, he'll tell you. And let me just give you a little hint. That thing that's frustrating you, that area that you're like, I just can't shake it, that's your passion. And that's where God, so if you see things going on in your neighborhood and they're like, that's what God wants you to work in. If there's something on your job that you feel like it needs to be fixed, ask God to give you wisdom and direction, because that's where your passion is. But bottom line, greater is he that is within us than he that is within the world. Work your passion. Work it. Work your passion, because somebody out there needs what you got. To God be the glory.
And that has been our defining moments on Father's Day. Shout out to Richard Pearson, who is my dad, the best man on this universe.
I know that's right.
And as I was saying earlier, we have the role of men in preventing intimate partner violence that will be held at the Baltimore Washington Conference of the United Methodist Church on this coming Wednesday, 9 o'clock a.m. to 12 o'clock p.m. Breakfast will be provided at no cost. The event is no cost. And we also provide continuing education units as well. So those of you who have some time on Wednesday, please come and join us. It's all about men standing against intimate partner violence.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us on Third Sunday's Tea Tastings and Testimonies. See you next month right here,
bless.
Vox Wave.
# Men for Domestic Peace.